I will now call the Affordability Committee meeting to order. This meeting is being held in person and electronically in accordance with the Municipal Act. There are two public meetings being held this evening. If you are joining the meeting virtually and have not yet registered and wish to speak, please email cityclerks@barrie.ca or call 705-797-5353 and staff will send you the information required to participate virtually. Tonight's applications were submitted by the developer and deemed complete under the Planning Act to proceed with the public meeting. The first meeting is to review an application for an official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and draft plan of subdivision submitted by IBI Group on behalf of Pearl Builders for lands known municipally as 320 and 364 Mapleview Drive West and 664, 674, and 692 Essa Road. The second public meeting is to review the revised applications for a draft plan of subdivision, official plan amendment, and zoning bylaw amendment submitted by Innovative Planning Solutions, Inc. on behalf of Greenwood Construction, Inc. Diagram Developments for lands known municipally as 175, 199 Essa Road, and 50 Wood Street. Members of the Affordability Committee will be listening to the presentations and comments received during the public meetings, but will not be making comments or debating the items tonight. Committee members will have an opportunity to provide comments when the staff reports are considered by General Committee at a later date. Given that there may be a number of speakers this evening, those speaking are requested to keep their comments to no longer than 5 or 10 minutes, please. As the purpose of a public meeting is to provide the public an opportunity to give comments on the subject application, the ward councillor will have an opportunity to ask questions of staff and questions of clarification. This will allow them to ask questions on behalf of residents unable to attend the meeting. Other committee members, including myself, can ask questions of staff by email at any point before or after the meeting. Any questions asked by the public during the public meeting will be noted by staff and the applicants. Any responses to the questions will be addressed in the staff reports presented at a later date. Interested persons wishing notification of the staff report should sign the notification form required by the Legislative and Court Services Department located on the table at the back of the council chambers or email cityclerk@barrie.ca. For an update on the status of the application, staff and the developmental services have provided memorandums concerning the applications which are included with tonight's agenda package. More information can be found online on the city's website or by contacting the file manager directly. Carlissa McLaren, Manager of Planning, would you please confirm that the notifications were conducted in accordance with the Planning Act for the public meetings?
Yes, Chair Nixon, it was.
Thank you. I will now call upon Simon Yee of IBI Group, Inc. to provide the presentation concerning the official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and draft plan of subdivision for lands known municipally as 320 and 364 Mapleview Drive West and 664, 674, and 692 Essa Road.
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Okay. Good evening, members of committee and public in attendance tonight. I'm happy to see you all here on this rainy Wednesday evening. My name is Simon Yee from Arcadis IBI Group. I'm the planner for the proposed development of the lands at the northeast corner of Mapleview Drive and Essa Road. Tonight, I will be presenting our revised application for official plan and zoning bylaw amendments and our application for a draft plan of subdivision. I'd like to start my presentation by acknowledging our project team who worked very hard to prepare our applications. They include Pearl Builders, who is the new developer and owner of the property, Arcadis IBI Group, Beacon Environmental, Tatum Engineering, Stribos, RWDI, GEI, and Junction Group, represented by Lynn Strawn behind me, who is here. Next slide. The subject site is located at the intersection of Mapleview Drive West and Essa Road within the Holly neighborhood in Ward 7. The site has a total lot area of 10.2 hectares and is a compilation of 5 municipal addresses with 419 meters of frontage along Mapleview and 367 meters of frontage on Essa Road. The majority of the site is undeveloped and underutilized, with 2 vacant single detached dwellings and a takeout restaurant establishment near the southwest corner. The site also has a portion of Bear Creek traversing through the center from east to west. The site is surrounded by Holy Spirit Parish Church to the north, Maple View Community Church to the east, a mix of low-rise commercial, retail, industrial, and institutional uses to the south, commercial retail and low-rise residential neighborhood to the west. In addition to its immediate surrounding amenities, the site is well connected to major public transportation infrastructure, which provide direct access to many local and regional destinations, making this site a prime location for intensification and mixed-use development. Mapleview and Essa are both major arterial roads with frequent bus service, having direct access to Highway 400 and 2 GO train stations in the city of Barrie. Essa Road going north, as you can see, connects with Barrie's downtown area, which includes all the amenities and services within Barrie's urban growth center, such as the Allendale Waterfront GO Station and Kempfelt Bay Waterfront. As such, the city of Barrie identifies Essa Road as a secondary intensification corridor, which are areas planned for higher density and mixed-use development. Some approved and proposed redevelopments along Essa Road already include townhouses and mid-rise buildings. As some members of the committee and public may recall, back in 2020, the previous applicant made the initial submission for official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications. And they also held their public meeting on December 15th, 2020. So tonight we're holding the second public meeting for this project as recommended by planning staff, and serves as providing the committee and the public our update on the existing applications based on comments and feedback received from staff and the public after the first public meeting. To refresh your memories a little, as you can see, the 3D rendering here was taken from the previous applicant's planning justification report, illustrating the previous proposal of a high-density mixed-use development with residential, retail, office, community, and institutional uses, and also a road network that included a proposed channel crossing. The proposal included a total of roughly 2,500 residential units and approximately 28,000 square meters of non-residential GFA within 12 mixed-use buildings ranging in heights from 1 to 27 stories. And in the spring of 2022, the current owner and developer Pearl Builders acquired the subject site and proceed to continue advancing and updating the existing applications. After taking this on, Pearl Builders and the project team had the benefit of learning from the previous submission. This helped us understand the issues and concerns raised by staff and the public, so we could better determine the public interest and develop a new master plan that appropriately addresses the comments and feedback received. This can be divided into the following major themes, as you can see in the slide: height and density, traffic, Bear Creek realignment and protection, stormwater management, parks and amenity space, and community services. Also, in forming the project's new vision and master plan, we conducted further consultations with city staff, Councillor Harvey, Deputy Mayor Ward, MBCA staff, Mapleview Community Church, and an active member of a local neighborhood resident group. This led us to developing our master plan guiding principles, which reimagines the vision to guide our revised proposal, starting with be a good neighbor by introducing a built form and density that's compatible with the surrounding community and existing context. Number 2, enhance, repair, and maintain Bear Creek by creating a naturalized channel corridor and providing the required environmental buffers. Number 3, create a prominent gateway into the city by recognizing Mapleview and Essa as a prominent gateway intersection. Number 4, build a complete community that's compact, transit supportive, and walkable to neighborhood amenities. Number 5, provide diversity of housing by building a mix of homes ranging in sizes and types. And finally, number 6, develop an identity by creating a strong sense of place and community through the design of amenity spaces, streetscapes, and buildings. So here it is, our proposed master plan. The proposal seeks to create a vibrant mixed-use, complete community that provides a diverse range of housing options for a growing community and city. The master plan proposes a medium-density mixed-use development with a total of 1,217 residential units and 3,476 square meters of non-residential GFA, primarily fronting onto Mapleview Drive. The proposed overall density is 156 units per hectare, and building heights range between 3 to 12 stories. The proposed development is divided into 3 distinct areas: the North Block, the South Block, and the Bear Creek Channel Corridor, which bisects the site. Starting with the proposed North Block, it includes 464 units consisting of 55 street townhouses, 390 stacked back-to-back townhouses, and 19 live-work towns. The 3-story street townhouses are located on the north and south edges with front-facing garages and driveways. The 4-story live-work townhouses are fronting along Essa Road, I'm shown in blue, with garages and driveways at the rear. On-street lay-by parking spaces on Essa Road are proposed directly in front of the live-work units to support the potential for at-grade commercial and office uses. The live-work units introduce opportunity for small-scale neighborhood commercial uses on the ground floor to activate the street and give Essa Road the look and feel of a village main street that can serve local residents. This is pretty consistent with the planned urbanization of Essa Road as described in the city's intensification corridor study. The 4-story stacked back-to-back towns in orange are in the center, providing the majority of the density in the North Block. Resident parking is provided in a single-level underground parking garage with access from Holly Home Farm Road on the east side of the property. The mix of townhouses typologies provide diversity and choice for future residents who may not want or be able to live in single detached homes, but still want a family-sized unit with open spaces. The townhouses provide that missing middle housing and is compatible with adjacent low-rise communities. From the comments, city staff was not so supportive of having any public roads here, so all proposed roads are private and no roads cross the channel. The network of 4 private roads, internal walkways, and sidewalks provide connectivity throughout the site and allow for on-street parking for visitors and residents. Holly Home Farm Road extension connects with Private Road A to the north, which intersects with Essa Road, making the only new intersection along this stretch of Essa Road. Outdoor amenity spaces for the residents are provided through a mix of private backyards, shared open spaces within a courtyard setting, private balconies, and terraces for stacked townhouse units. So in this artistic rendering, you can see a shared open space in one of the courtyards framed by the 4-story stacked townhouses. To the proposed South Block. The South Block has the most density and heights, consisting of 4 mid-rise buildings ranging from 6 to 12 stories, comprising of a total of 753 residential units, 2,661 square meters of retail GFA, and 815 square meters of potentially a library and community use. The building heights start at 6 stories at Essa Road, then goes to the highest point at 12 stories before tapering down to 10 and 8 stories toward Holly Home Farm Road. The buildings at the furthest east and west points offer a mix of commercial retail and non-residential uses, such as the library or potential daycare on the ground floor to serve existing and future residents. By activating the ground floor here, the intent is to create a vibrant pedestrian-oriented main street along Mapleview Drive. Higher density and building heights are located along Mapleview Drive because it has the least amount of impact on the stable low-rise neighborhood to the west of Essa. And it is also a major arterial road, as mentioned before, consisting of largely employment commercial and institutional uses to the east with direct access to transit and Highway 400. From a transportation perspective, vehicle access will be limited to the existing signalized intersection at Holly Home Farm Road and a new mid-block intersection proposed as only right in and right out as noted in the city's comments. Parking will be provided in underground and above ground level garages, which will not be visible from the public street and hidden at the rear along Private Road D. In addition, the intersection of Mapleview and Essa is recognized as a prominent gateway intersection in the city. To define this gateway, the proposal introduces a publicly accessible open space called a promenade. It's flanked by the 6 and 12-story mixed-use mid-rises with commercial retail at grade to animate the promenade and create that sense of place in the community. The promenade also provides a frame view corridor of Holy Spirit Parish Church, visually connecting the site with its surrounding amenities. And here you will see a rendering at Mapleview Drive West, looking north through the promenade, and you can see the church's bell tower in the distance. All right, next up is the proposed channel corridor. The proposed Bear Creek Channel Corridor is a large natural and landscape area within the center of the proposed development, providing sufficient separation and buffer between the low-rise townhouse development to the north and the mid-rises in the south. The channel corridor is proposed to be 63 meters wide to satisfy the NVCA requirement to have a minimum 30-meter buffer on either side of the creek. The channel corridor design enhances, preserves, and protects Bear Creek while providing capacity for stormwater management. The 63-meter width includes a 47-meter wide environmental protection zone centered along the creek and an 8-meter wide open space area on either side for stormwater management facilities. So through a collaborative effort with our project team, the city and NVCA staff, the proposed channel corridor design was accepted in principle with the understanding that the 47-meter wide EP zone would be conveyed to the city of Barrie. So in this rendering, it's a view from a balcony on the north side of one of the proposed mid-rise buildings. It shows how the channel corridor is integrated into the development. And also you may notice that the height and density of the townhouse units transition pretty well to the low rise on the west side and is pretty sensitive to the low rise neighborhood. Now onto the policy context. Here in this slide, you'll see mainly the municipal policy context, but as you may know, planning in Ontario follows a top-down approach, looking at provincial policy to guide the development applications. So starting with the provincial policy statement, the proposal is consistent with the key policy directions as the proposal promotes an efficient use of land and intensification within a settlement area. It improves the supply and range of housing options, and it redevelops underutilized lands with existing municipal services and infrastructure. The proposal also conforms to the provincial growth plan by promoting a mixed-use neighborhood to foster complete communities, and it provides a mix of housing types, land uses, employment opportunities, and a compact built form that supports walking, cycling, and transit. The growth plan projections have the city of Barrie growing to a population of 298,000 by 2051, more than double the current Barrie population. And more recently, as a result of Bill 23, the More Homes Built Faster Act, the city of Barrie pledged to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing to facilitate the construction of 23,000 housing units by 2031. So this proposal can help the city achieve those targets through residential intensification of these urban lands and also providing a diversity of housing required to add to the city's housing supply for accommodating this projected growth. Now onto the municipal policy context with the official plan. So pending approval of the new official plan, the subject lands are currently designated general commercial and general industrial under the current in effect City of Barrie official plan. As such, the proposed development of the subject site requires an official plan amendment to redesignate the site to residential, open space, and environmental protection to permit the proposed mix of the land uses. The city's new council adopted official plan designates the subject site as medium density. As per the new official plan, developments in the medium density designation are encouraged to be mixed use, should be between 6 to 12 stories in height, and have a density of 125 to 300 units per hectare. It also notes that if the minimum density can be met, building heights less than 6 stories may be permitted. So with that, the current proposal conforms with the medium density land use designation of the new official plan. So the proposed official plan amendment, if approved, would bring the proposal into conformity with the policies of the new official plan. The site's existing zoning is general commercial and general industrial. So to facilitate the proposed development, the site seeks to rezone the lands to multiple residential second density, mixed use corridor, environmental protection, and open space. Site specific provisions are also requested for height, density, setbacks, parking, and landscape open space. So this slide briefly describes the applications we submitted to the city on December 20th, 2022. This slide shows the draft plan of subdivision we submitted to create 2 mixed-use blocks, which would be developed through site plan control, along with 2 open space blocks and an environmental protection block, which would be conveyed to the city of Barrie. The first phase of development will be the construction of the channel corridor, followed by the north and south blocks. This slide shows a list of the reports and drawings submitted in support of our new proposal. Just to note, we received city comments from various departments on our second submission already, which have generally expressed staff support for the new proposal. Our intent is to have our response to city comments in a third submission to the city in April. Okay, this slide provides some summary points that I've already mentioned, so I won't read them all, but I will just say the city of Barrie is experiencing substantial growth to meet provincial projections. The proposed development aims to transform the site by creating a complete community with a mix of uses and providing the housing required to contribute to the city's housing supply to accommodate the growth. The proposed development is consistent with policies contained in the provincial policy statement and conforms with the policies of the growth plan and the city of Barrie new official plan. It is in our opinion that the proposed amendments to the official plan and zoning bylaw represent good planning and are in the public interest. So accordingly, we recommend approval of the applications. That is the end of my presentation. I may now take any questions from the public and community members. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yee. I will now call upon Andrew Gamiro, Senior Planner, to provide an update on the status of the application.
Good evening, Chair Nixon, Mayor Nuttall, members of the Affordability Committee, and the public. Further to Mr. Yee's presentation, please be advised that planning staff and our technical review team are currently still completing the review process associated with this application. As Mr. Yee advised, we're expecting a resubmission, which will go through another round of technical review. And in addition to the memo provided to the Affordability Committee this evening, I will be providing an update regarding the status of the application, identifying any comments that have been received from members of the public to date, as well as highlighting the key planning and land use matters that are being considered by planning staff and our technical review team at this time. Just for a bit of background information, Mr. Yee touched on it, but a neighborhood meeting was held on September 22nd, 2020, followed by a public meeting on December 15th of 2020 regarding the original development proposal that was submitted by the previous owners. I just wanted to highlight some of the comments that were raised by members of the public at that meeting. Those included primarily concerns with increased traffic and impacts to pedestrian safety along Essa Road and Mapleview Drive. And also concerns regarding the proposed increases in density and height, along with the parking reductions that were being proposed at that time. Given, as Mr. Yee, noted, given the time that lapsed since the first submission, as well as the change in ownership of the property and the significant revisions to the development proposal, planning staff recommended that the applicant go through a second round public review process just to present the new proposal to the Affordability Committee and members of the public, and provide an opportunity for the committee and the public to provide additional feedback before we move forward. I just wanted to, as I mentioned earlier, the applications are currently under review still by planning staff and the city's technical review team. That process is ongoing as we expect a resubmission. The Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority is also reviewed and that is involved, in that review process. And an analysis of the application will be provided at a later date following the review process once a staff report is brought forward for general committee's consideration. At this time, the primary planning and land use matters being considered by staff and our technical review team include firstly justification for the requested changes to the official plan, as well as the appropriateness of the site-specific provisions being sought through the zoning bylaw amendment to facilitate the project. Also consideration of site integration, including connectivity to surrounding developments such as existing and proposed developments along the south side of Mapleview Drive East. I understand some comments were received with respect to driveway alignments. It's something that has been brought to staff's attention, and we will be working to address that moving forward and facilitating discussions between the property owners. We're also looking to have discussions with Mapleview Community Church in hopes that the applicant can establish a mutual access agreement with them to utilize the existing signalized intersection and any associated service infrastructure, just to allow for proper traffic operations given the magnitude of this development. We're also looking at ensuring the establishment of an appropriate buffer and implementation of mitigation measures to ensure the long-term health and function of the Bear Creek tributary, which runs through the central portion of the property in an east-west direction. We're also looking at integration of the proposed development concept with the surrounding neighborhood and conformity with the overall envisioned development pattern for the Mapleview Drive and Essa Road area. Further on, we're also looking for confirmation that the proposed development can be supported by existing and or planned municipal services and infrastructure, and the applicant has submitted a functional servicing report in that respect, which is under review by the city's approvals branch as well as our infrastructure services department, just given future plans post 2031 to improve Essa Road in the long term. We're also looking at impacts that the development may have on traffic operations and pedestrian safety. And the applicant has submitted a transportation impact study, which is under review, and some comments have been provided. And again, we're awaiting a resubmission in response to those comments. And finally, staff want to ensure that the proposed density of the development is appropriate and won't jeopardize the overall and long-term functionality of the project, just as it relates to providing some key items such as sufficient parking and loading areas, indoor and outdoor amenities, landscaping, snow storage areas, your waste collection and storage facilities, proper access into and also egress out of the site, and finally ensuring that there's a strong and safe pedestrian network of walkways. So that's really the key items that we're considering at this moment through our review. Just wanted to highlight those. With respect to the next steps in the process, planning staff are going to continue the technical review process. We anticipate there will likely be some back and forth with the applicant, potentially some discussions needed with adjacent landowners. We'll work through that. And if all goes well, we're targeting hopefully the second or third quarter of 2023 to bring a staff report forward for general committee's consideration. And all the comments received through that technical review process, as well as comments received through the public engagement processes, will be identified and addressed in that staff report and form part of staff's recommendation on these applications. And that really concludes my presentation for this evening. Thank you, Chair Nixon, Mayor Nuttall, members of the Affordability Committee, and the public. I'm happy to answer any questions of clarification and to hear from members of the public. And before I sign off quickly, I just want to note that all of the submission material, key dates associated with these applications, as well as my contact information, is available on the city's proposed developments webpage under Ward 7. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gamiro. We have one member of the audience which would like to speak, and at this point, I will now invite Mr. Doug Lougheed to the podium. Please state your address for the records.
Thank you, Chair Nixon. Doug Lougheed, 1510 33 Ellen Street in Barrie, Ontario. I just wish to make a few comments in relation to the historical context of the application. I'm speaking to you as a Holly expert in the sense that my family was one of the original settlers in the Holly area. I'm a fifth generation Holly resident or Holly person, with my fifth great grandfather settling there in 1842. So our property was actually right across the road from just immediately south of the proposed of this development property. As you're aware, Holly was part of the former township of Innisfil and annexed into the city in 1981. This specific property was originally owned by the Dyer family, George Dyer, 1861 to 1937, until the late 1920s, when his sons Elmer and his older brother Morley took over the farming operation and promptly named it Elmore Farm, ELMOR. Elmore Farm operated as a dairy farming operation, milking about 20 registered Holstein cattle. The Holstein herd was all registered with the prefix name of Elmore as part of the registration and production record processes for Holstein Canada. Elmer married Gladys Shrigley in 1936, and Gladys's grandfather, Malin Shrigley, was actually the first settler in Holly in 1840. And the farm she grew up on was called Mapleton, which is where Mapleton Drive is currently today. She taught at Holly School in the late 1920s up until about the time she got married in 1936. After 1936, when she was married to Elmer, Gladys, Elmer, and Morley operated Elmore until 1965, when Morley passed away, and they retired to Barrie and was sold to the Williams family. In recognition and in respect to the early settlers of the Holly area, I'm requesting that the street names on the subject property of this application be considered. Note there's already a Dyer Road in the city of Barrie South End, so that's not in the picture. Elmore, I'm proposing something along the lines of Elmore Street Avenue Road, which was the Dyer Farm name for this property. This is consistent with the Holly area street names, and I referred to Mapleton earlier, which Mapleton Farm was where Mapleton Avenue is, and Holly Home Farm was the name of the farm that I grew up on, and as was referred to in the applicant's presentation, Holly Home Farm Road borders the east side of the property. Alternatively, maybe names of Elmer, Morley, or Gladys streets, roads, avenues, etc., could be considered. I don't believe there is any such names in the city of Barrie from the Google search that I did. So that's all I have. I submitted some comments earlier today. I'm sorry I didn't read about it until this morning. So I put my research skills together and got some information about the area, and hopefully that the council and planning staff down the road and the applicant will consider the historical aspect of the property. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lougheed. I'm just going to confirm with the clerk that we have no guests waiting virtually. Correct. Okay, great. I'm going to ask Ward 7 Councillor Harvey, do you have any questions or clarification you'd like to add?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Nixon. And obviously, it's good to see so many people are here. Apparently, they're not here for this application, though. But it does provide a little bit of normalcy, because all too often we're sitting here in an empty gallery, other than the night that we were sworn in. So it is good to see that there is interest in what's going in our city. And moving forward, just a couple of quick questions, and actually I'll touch on Mr. Lawheed's comments that were just made to the applicant or city staff, because I believe it is city staff that will ultimately decide these street names, even though they are private roads. Are these street names that were suggested? Can we assure Mr. Lawheed that they will be in consideration?
Through you, Chair Nixon, to Councillor Harvey, we can certainly look at the municipal naming registry to see if those names have already been assigned or selected. If not, then we can look at adding them to that registry, and ultimately through discussions with yourself as the ward councillor, we can look at potentially naming those with consultation with the applicant as well when the application comes forward for site plan approval.
Great, thank you. I'll start my first few questions though, just for the applicant. When it comes to the north and the south half, I understand from earlier discussions that I've had with your representatives that the north section where the townhouses are will be developed first, and that the south portion where the apartment buildings are going to be will be the second part of the construction. First, when do you anticipate, if things go ahead as planned, when would you anticipate that construction would start here?
Through you and Chair Nixon to Councillor Harvey. The short answer is as soon as possible. I know that the first phase of this development is to construct the channel corridor. So that would be the first phase. And as soon as that corridor is completed to a level that is acceptable, and if we have site plan approval, it'll be shovels in the ground right away, and we'll be applying for building permits like ASAP.
Great, thank you. And I would also like to thank you for this revised application, because it is dramatically different than the small city that the previous applicant wanted to build here. And I do appreciate all the consultation that was done leading up to today, because I know from speaking to a few of my residents, they actually felt like they were heard. And I know with my discussions, I actually felt like some of the stuff that I had mentioned too really did impact what was presented here today. The one thing that I'm wanting a little clarity on is the Bear Creek Channel section of it. Now, in the images that were provided here today, I don't see any fencing or anything like that. What I would like to know is, what is the plan for this area? Because I know historically we tend to fence off these areas that have water related to them, whether it's a water retention pond and creeks and stuff. And also to, if there was any connectability between the two halves considered, whether it's one or two walking pedestrian bridges, especially because the condos at the south end are going to have lower level shops and things there. So that way people that are in that north half wouldn't have to get into their vehicles and could either walk or ride their bike to go pick up a bag of milk or something along those lines.
Through you, Chair Nixon, to Councillor Harvey, thank you for that question, and that's a great comment. When we designed our master plan, we anticipated or were envisioning some pedestrian connections to connect both the north and the south blocks. However, city comments and city requirements do have like a fencing bylaw that would require, I believe, a 1.5 or 1.8 meter high chain link fence to kind of protect the creek. So that is something that we had to abide by, and it was not, we did not propose any sort of connection because of that requirement. But we are open to exploring opportunities to connect both the north and south blocks through pedestrian connections.
Great, thank you. Yeah, regardless of the fence being there, I still think there's an opportunity to have that connectability. And obviously the fence would have to go up to the edge of the beginning of the bridge, but just to have that discussion moving forward would be great, because I really think it helps keeping the two halves, because it is a very divided parcel of land with the creek in the middle. At least it blends those two halves together and creates connectability, opposed to people having to take a long walk out to Holly Home, back down and around, which really doesn't make sense. I got a feeling people are jumping in cars if they got to do that. The other question I have is in regards to the parking on Essa Road in regards to the live work units. You mentioned that there was going to be some on-street parking, and I counted 19 live work units. How many parking spots are you anticipating to be out on the edge of Essa Road to be able to service those live work units?
Through you, Chair Nixon, to Councillor Harvey, thank you for that question. I don't have the plans in front of me, but I think we are anticipating maybe 8 or 9 spaces in front of Essa Road. I'll have to take a look and see how many there actually are, but we were thinking that those spaces would be very temporary, short-term parking spaces that can service the ground-related either retail or commercial uses on the live work units. It's not meant to be like long-term parking. There is also an abundance of visitors parking on street within the development on the private streets. So if those on-street parking spaces on Essa Road were to fill up, there's always opportunity to go into the property to park on the private roads.
Okay, great. And one other thing that's come up as a concern in one of my older subdivisions that were just built is the community spaces. When construction is occurring, do you anticipate that you'll be building these community spaces at the time of construction, opposed to people having nowhere for their kids to play for, let's say, 1 to 2 years after they move into their townhouse?
Through you, Chair Nixon, and to Councillor Harvey. It's a tough question to answer at this time because we are very early in the process. That is something that we can explore when we do go through the detailed design and the construction management plan during the site plan approval process. But that is something that we can definitely consider moving forward.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Because it has caused a little bit of conflict at our Bear Creek subdivision at Essa and Salem, because the condos have their own separate park and there's no park for the rest of the subdivision as of yet. So definitely something to keep in consideration. Given that, those are all my questions, and I do thank you for your application and the fact that it does meet the mid-density of our new official plan. Much happier to see 12-story buildings coming instead of 27-story buildings. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Yee and Councillor Harvey. If anyone has any further written comments, you can submit them to Andrew Gamiro in the Development Services Department at andrew.gamiro, that's Gameiro @berry.ca. Before we move into the second public meeting, I am going to call upon Councillor Kunkel, who
Yes, thank you. I do have a pecuniary interest with the next development. I am a member of the Barrie Curling Club and have relationship around events. So I did speak with the Integrity Commissioner. While I am a non-voting member of this committee, I am able to remain at the table. And as only the councillor in this format would be of the ward would be speaking to the development, I am also removed from either debating, voting, or influencing the vote. So we'll remain here, but we'll remain a non-participant in any of the following matters pertaining to this development.
thank you very much. I will now call upon James Hunter of Innovative Planning Solutions concerning the official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and draft plan of subdivision for lands known municipally as 175 and 199 Essa Road and 50 Wood Street. Mr. Hunter. No. He is participating virtually, I understand. Good evening, Mr. Hunter. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor Nuttall, members of council, city staff, and the public in attendance tonight. My name is James Hunter, and I'm an associate with Innovative Planning Solutions here in Barrie. Tonight, we're representing Green World Construction, Inc., who is an established developer and builder with over 25 years of successful projects. We are pleased to be here tonight on behalf of the applicant for official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and draft plan applications for lands located at 175 and 199 Essa Road and 50 Wood Street in the city of Barrie. The applications pertains to two properties, which will be referred to as the Woodlands and the Essa lands throughout our presentation. The Wood Street lands include an area of 10.7 hectares with existing site access and frontage along Wood Street. The lands are currently vacant and have been historically utilized for industrial uses. Hodges Creek currently runs through the lands, and the future is part of a comprehensive realignment plan to improve the health of the system. The Essa lands include a site area of 11.7 hectares with frontage along Essa Road and Ann Street South. The existing site access is provided off Essa Road, and the lands are currently vacant except for the Barrie Curling Club, which does have a 99-year lease to 2051. The lands are known also as their former use as the Barrie Fairgrounds. The subject lands are uniquely positioned at the intersection of Highway 400 and Essa Road. For further context, the lands are defined by the Barrie-Collingwood rail line to the north, Ann Street to the east, Essa Road to the south, and Highway 400 to the west. An established residential area is located to the north of Essa lands, part of the Allendale neighborhood. Various commercial uses are also located along Essa Road, which provides everyday services. The site is also well positioned in respect to transit, with convenient access to local and regional transit systems, including Barrie bus routes located along Essa Road, and the Allendale Waterfront GO station approximately 1 kilometer to the east, which is a 15-minute walk or 6-minute bike ride. There are 6 parks located within approximately 1 kilometer of the site, including Blair Park with residential within the residential neighborhood adjacent to the north. And through our subject development, we are proposing a pedestrian connection to the park, which is approximately a 3-minute walk. There are 3 schools located approximately 1 kilometer of the subject lands, including St. John Vianney, Allendale Heights Public School, and Innisdale Secondary School. Further, the Lake Simcoe waterfront is located approximately 1.1 kilometers, and this does have access to active recreational trails, public spaces, community gathering opportunities. The City of Barrie official plan designates the Woodlands as Highway 400 Industrial, which is shown in blue, and General Commercial for the Essa land shown in pink. The lands are further included along a primary intensification corridor, which is Essa Road. The City of Barrie did adopt a new official plan in February 2022, which is pending approval by the province. In the adopted official plan, the lands are within a strategic growth area and located along intensification corridor. As well, the Essa lands are designated high density and the woodlands are designated as medium density in the new draft official plan. Regarding zoning, the subject lands are currently zoned as highway industrial and general commercial. The proposal does represent an opportunity to develop a significant parcel of underutilized lands within the city of Barrie at the prominent location of Highway 400 and Essa Road. The 22.4 hectares of land holdings provides an opportunity to substantially contribute to the city of Barrie's housing stock and provide for development to take place in a comprehensive and cohesive manner, all on lands where intensification is encouraged. The master plan has been developed by strategically placing the highest densities towards intensification corridors of Essa Road and at the location of Highway 400. This is to provide a belt form that provides an appropriate transition as stepping between land uses to the north. Collectively, the proposed development shown on the slide would facilitate 2,828 residential units, including 421 townhome units in freehold and condo tenure, as well as 2,407 condo units incorporated into 9 high-rise towers. So on the subject slide, what you're seeing is the master plan with each use defined by color code. The purple defines the street townhomes in freehold and condominium tenure located internally to the site. The dark pink depicts the high-rise residential buildings, which are located along Highway 400. And the light pink illustrates the mixed-use residential buildings with commercial uses located along Essa Road. The blue outlines the open space block to the north, where stormwater management facilities and Hodges Creek are located. And the green represents landscape open space amenity areas, which does include green rooftop terraces and elevated amenity spaces on the high-rise buildings. Pedestrian sidewalks are also proposed along the internal municipal streets, with a pedestrian connection trail along the western boundary of the site, which runs from the high-rise blocks to the open space block at the north, offering active outdoor amenity space. Working with the MTO, a 14-meter setback has been incorporated along Highway 400, and further tree protection zones are implemented between the subject site and the existing residential properties to the north, with efforts of preserving healthy boundary trees. Regarding the high-rise design, we have 9 high-rise towers proposed with 2407 residential units. So it's 5 residential towers with strictly residential uses, as well as 4 mixed-use towers splitting the residential units for the site. 12 to 35 stories in height are proposed, framing the intersection of Highway 400 and Essex Road. Incorporated into the high-rise units are 42 townhouse units at a 2-story built form, which are located internal to the podium, providing transition to the medium density townhouse blocks internal to the site. Collective GFA of just under 194,000 is proposed, which does include just under 3,000 meters square of retail space, which is integrated into the mixed-use buildings along Essa Road, which is shown over on this slide here. And within that, there's 4 levels of parking podium and 1 level included in underground for a total of 5 levels of parking podium. Within the parking podium, we have 1 space per unit for the condos. We have dedicated commercial spaces for the commercial units. We have dedicated barrier-free spaces, as well as they are offering secure bicycle parking rooms to encourage active transportation. For the townhouse design, we have 421 townhouse units proposed, including 106 units in freehold tenure and 315 units in condo tenure. The subject slide demonstrates the proposed variety of townhouse units by product type. So what you're seeing are the yellow units defined by back-to-back. Then the street townhouse units are shown in blue and green, providing the transition to the existing neighborhood to the northeast. The street townhouse units under condo tenure are distributed across the site, and that's illustrated by purple and light green. And red defines the rear lane townhouse units with frontage along the proposed municipal roads. The conceptual units are designed at 3 stories in height with substantial living spaces for the desired unit types. And all townhouse units will offer private balconies for amenity space outdoors. Generous rear yards are also provided for the street townhouse units, providing amenity space for the residents. And 2 to 4 parking spaces are provided, with additional visitor spaces incorporated within shared parking areas. The townhouse blocks are accessed by public roads and common laneways. So these are the public municipal roads that we're referring to around the perimeter of the site, and then the internal laneways to access the condo units are provided. For site amenities, there are a diversity of site amenities proposed as highlighted on the subject slide. This includes the parking podium, which encompasses indoor amenity areas, including common lobbies, lounges, party rooms, and dedicated amenity space for residents. There are green roof terraces provided above the parking podium with common connections, walking paths, gathering spaces, and outdoor amenities, which you're seeing on the slides here at the green, connecting between the buildings. And rooftop amenity spaces are also located on the podium, which offers shared outdoor amenities and gathering spaces as well. On top of that, there's a public pedestrian trail which widens through the development proposal, forming active amenity space, and a multi-use path and sidewalks are incorporated throughout the site for pedestrian movements. Private balconies are also offered for each condo and townhouse unit. And further, the commercial retail provided integrates an active pedestrian streetscape along Essa Road, and it will service not only the residents of the site, but also the public. To highlight site circulation and transit for the subject development, 3 access points are proposed for the site with connections from Essa Road to the south, Ann Street to the east, and Wood Street to the north. Primary traffic is directed to Essa Road with a secondary right in, right out at Ann Street. Minimal traffic is directed to Wood Street, as traffic is directed to Essa Road where it can be accommodated and where residents will seek to utilize intensification corridor access for Highway 400, the downtown, and other areas of the city. A signalized intersection is proposed for the site at the intersection of Essa Road and our lands to provide controlled traffic movements, which is highlighted here. Internal to the site, municipal streets are proposed for site circulation with public sidewalks shown in pink. And a 3.5 meter multi-use path is proposed along the municipal streets, which will encourage active transportation such as cycling connections. And that is the dark purple you're seeing here with the sidewalks in pink. The active pedestrian trails also illustrated in green connecting to the open space block to the north. And there's active connections proposed between the high-rise buildings, which connects the high-rise blocks to the internal streets, and then also further through the high-rise blocks to Essa Road. So this does facilitate pedestrian movements along with direct connections through the high-rise blocks. And existing transit can be utilized along Essa Road with further connections provided by the site and active pedestrian connections. In regard to infrastructure upgrades, the applicant is working with the city to contribute their share. And ultimately, this will be implemented for any upgrades into details of ongoing work through master plans and programs with the city of Barrie. To facilitate the master plan shown, the lands are subject to a draft plan of subdivision application in order to permit the future subdivision of the lands into the desired lots and blocks. Each intended use has been divided into desired blocks as shown on the draft plan here. The townhouse uses are maintained in the purple blocks, and the high-rise uses are maintained in the light pink and dark pink blocks. The existing curling club is to remain as a feature of the development, illustrated in yellow, and landscape buffers are provided in green. The open space and stormwater management block is preserved in the area to the north. And it's important to note that the city of Barrie and the MTO road widenings have been accommodated into our development plan, and we intend to continue working with both parties through the application process. To support the proposed development, amendments are required to the City of Barrie official plan and zoning bylaw. The official plan amendment seeks to redesignate the lands to residential and open space. So the residential is the yellow shown, and then the open space is provided in green. In addition, the application includes a defined policy area for the site, which will establish the desired height and density for the development, while allowing for flexibility at the detailed design stage. And for a zoning bylaw amendment, we're requesting 3 different zones, which is the residential multiple dwelling second density RM2, which you're seeing in the purple and blue, the transition center commercial representing the high-rise blocks in the yellow and orange, and then the open space block, which is the Hotchkiss Creek stormwater management facilities and open space to the north here in green. Under each zone, there is site-specific provisions that will apply, and the existing curling club shown in pink here will remain in the general commercial C4 zone. In support of the subject applications, there were a number of technical reports, drawings, and documents provided. The subject slide highlights a few of the key studies completed by qualified professionals, including master plan and draft plan as shown in this presentation, urban design report and planning justification report, arborist assessment, the Hotchkiss Creek assessment, landscape concept plan, which you're seeing on the left portion of the slide here, high-rise architectural design drawings with the shadow study, townhouse architectural design drawings, functional servicing and stormwater management report, an environmental impact study, and a hydrogeological assessment, geotechnical traffic studies, environmental noise study, pedestrian level wind study, and phase 1 and 2 ESA studies as well. To provide an expedited policy review from provincial and city plans, growth is directed to the city of Barrie as it is a designated settlement area. And within these settlement areas, there's a direction for ambitious levels of development as it can be accommodated. To support complete and sustainable communities, a shift is directed to create a more urban city with higher densities, compact urban form, vibrant public realm, and a mix of land uses. Further, intensification and redevelopment is encouraged with emphasis placed on vacant and underutilized parcels such as the subject lands to support for more resourceful, sustainable, and economical developments that can be serviced by infrastructure. Logical growth is promoted to create opportunities for people to live, work, and play in their communities with a collective goal of creating new housing options and a more diverse range for residents. So this is essentially wrapped up by Bill 23 with a new push for 1.5 million new homes in the next 10 years. And in order to support these goals by the province and city for intensification and growth targets, we do require new developments to support these objectives. To conclude, the proposed development does provide a unique opportunity to accommodate significant growth that is planned for the city of Barrie with a diverse range of housing units and support of commercial retail. The applications would support a range of attainable housing units to aid in combating the housing deficiency within the city of Barrie. Mixed-use developments promote economical and sustainable growth, supporting complete communities with a vibrant public realm, attractive amenities, and employment opportunities for the area. Further development of the subject lands would create a gateway into the city where residents currently pass a vacant underutilized parcel. and to permit the proposed mixed-use development amendments are required to the official plan and zoning bylaw. This concludes our presentation overviewing the development proposal and the associated applications. We will turn the meeting back over to the chair, but I'd be happy to answer any questions directed my way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hunter. I will now call upon Celeste Gethsemane, Senior Planner, to provide an update on the status of the applications. There you go.
Sorry. Good evening, Chair Nixon, Mayor Nuttall, members of the Affordability Committee and the public. As noted in the introduction to this to the presentation for this application, this is a second public meeting being held for the project, as the ownership of the properties has changed and a new concept has been submitted with revised applications for official plan and zoning bylaw amendments to facilitate the proposed developments. Further to Mr. Hunter's presentation and the memo provided to the Affordability Committee by staff, I will provide a brief update, in particular considering the gallery behind us, regarding the status of the applications. These applications are currently under review by planning staff and the city's technical review team. A detailed analysis of the applications will be provided at a later date when a staff report is brought forward for council's consideration. The primary planning and land use matters being considered at this time include, but are not limited to, intensification growth targets, the transition of built form, the mix of land use, the integration of the concept into the surrounding area, the potential for a new school site, details for stormwater management, the proposed daylighting of the Hotchkiss Creek feature, and downstream flood attenuation measures, as well as analysis and mitigation of potential site contamination and traffic. The staff report with respect to all of these applications are anticipated to come forward to Planning Committee later in 2023. And the submission material and key dates associated with the development of this site are available for viewing online on the city's proposed developments webpage under Ward 8. Alternatively, you can contact me directly. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions of clarification and to hear from members of the public. Thank you
very much. We have a few guests here tonight that would like to speak, and I will now invite Arnie Invison to come to the podium, and please state your address for the records. Thank you.
Oh, it's been a while since I've been here. Good evening, Chair Nixon, Mayor Nuttall, and members of council. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you with regards to the latest proposal of the Old Barrie Fairgrounds. I say latest because, as some of you may know, this is important and even historical piece of property, and it has some history. It has been a subject of much speculation and debate going back as far as when Jeff Lehman was our ward councillor. When Osmington first purchased this property, we all gathered at a public meeting in the old Sticky Fingers Plaza by the curling club some 15 years ago or more. My wife Lynn and I purchased our first and only home on nearby Alfred Street, 43 Alfred, 37 years ago, this coming November 1st. We still have the same neighbors on both sides, but we have seen changes. Some of us old timers are still here, but lately we have seen an influx of young families move into the neighborhood, and the nearby playground at Blair Park is in full swing again, and yes, pun intended. We run the risk and have been called NIMBYs due to our opposition of this latest proposal, which is significantly far more impactful than any other previous proposal. In a perfect world, many of us would love to see the city purchase this land and make it a naturalized inner city park for residents, travelers passing through, walking trails, off-leash dog parks, picnic areas to reduce the carbon footprint. But that is unlikely to happen. Some would like to see the Y built there. Others have suggested an attempt to be made again to lure a university campus. Some even an IKEA. So if this property is to be developed, then it has to be done in such a manner that it benefits residents that will live there and around it. The 2020 proposal by the previous owner, Osmington, had some merit. It included a percentage of affordable housing. This one doesn't, and I did not see that mentioned in the presentation. Housing for seniors and townhomes for families. That even had a green space and a park for kids to play. Those of us who attended that August 2020 public meeting offered input into ways to mitigate traffic, noise, and other infrastructure issues. Then suddenly the property sold in 2022 to Green Road Construction / Diagram Developments, who have now come in and basically stacked 9 high rises ranging from 12 to 35 stories high on top of what was previously proposed by the previous owners, inherently doubling the size. Developers in Barrie love to hide behind the provincial growth plan banner, believing it gives them carte blanche to do as they please and asking our municipal leaders to yield to it. Premier Ford's Bill 23 doesn't help either, but I'm trusting that our city council will not yield to this pressure and plan this out with some thought and insight. As I mentioned before, we are not anti-development for this area. We are for smart development. The current proposal calls for a modest estimation of 5,000 to 7,000 residents based on a modest 2.5 ratio. In the conversation with Kathy Colbat, she thinks that estimation is low, and I trust her judgment. That amount of people equates to the populations of Parry Sound, Shelburne, Goderich, or Perth being inserted into this footprint. Just that one space, looking at a size of city of those 4 cities roughly. Take into consideration proposal less than 1 kilometer away at Tiffin and Innisfil Street, where the old co-op used to be. There are 7 more high rises are proposed to go in that area. So that is a total of 16 high rises in less than a kilometer, plus townhomes. So now population sizes of Gravenhurst, Kenora, or Pembroke are all being inserted into an area less than a kilometer apart. I just made some notes here, so I'm going off script a little bit, but during the presentation, I noticed that there was no dedicated green space for this proposal, and it'll be, I think I'll get to it later. Sorry. Please consider that in the strain it would have on our infrastructure, on aging water and sewage lines from the 1950s, carbon footprint, the lack of schools, community resources, and the vehicle traffic and pedestrian traffic in this area and the safety around those issues. And I bring up that because Blair Park, which is our neighborhood park, all these people that live in this area would then traverse over to Blair Park, crossing Campbell and Del Marcus, and there are no sidewalks on Marcus, and they would have to cross over Campbell Street where there would be an influx of traffic. The gateway into the city at Essa and the 400 is one of the most congested areas in the city already. Inserting 5,000 to 7,000 residents in this small area so close to this major intersection would be a nightmare. The number one concern of most area residents is traffic. Access to development is faulty. One entrance off of Essa and a right turn only entrance exit off of Ann. That leaves vehicles racing through the Blair Park residential neighborhood with 5 roads, including crossroads like Marcus and Alfred Street, funneling down to Wood Street, a small short street like a multi-ball plinko or pinball game. This is an area that has sidewalks only on one side of the street, if any, or incomplete ones, or go past a playground where children and their families or seniors walk to and from. We speak from experience. When DeVilbiss was an operating factory where the stormwater plan is for those ponds, many of us lodged complaints with ownership of how employees race through our neighborhood at high rates of speed before, after shift, and on their lunch hour. The property is also contaminated with TCE, which is trichloroethylene, and I'm awaiting results on the extent of a plume on this property. We can all agree sprawl needs to stop. Out on Mapleview East, the sprawl is not only in full bloom, but spreading. It makes more sense to build towers near the Barrie South GO station or way past South the Hollyway where there is the room to build and to grow that way. We ask you to please give this fairgrounds proposal serious consideration as it will greatly affect a widespread area and their area residents. Remember, more is not necessarily better. We support housing in this area. It just has to be done with common sense, with no high rises. And with that, I have on the weekend and with the help of Brenda Tanner on Sunday, I walked around the neighborhood. I spoke to some neighbors, and I would like to submit a petition of 70 area residents who signed a petition against high rises for this development. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to call up Norman Speak on behalf of the Barrie Curling Club. Mr. Speak.
Mayor Nuttall, members of council, city staff. My name is Norman Speak. I'm a member of the Board of Directors of the Barrie Curling Club. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. I understand you've had the opportunity to read our detailed submission. So just as a reminder, we've been here since 1952. We're on leased land, and our landlord is the present applicant. We are the only curling club in Barrie. We're not for profit. We're membership driven, volunteer driven. And we're supported almost entirely by membership dues and such funds as can be raised by the membership. Membership is normally in the range of 700. That's generally accepted for a curling club of our size, 100 per sheet. Councillor Harvey has noted the representation behind me. Maybe a coincidence, maybe just because we think this is important. I'm warned that curling for tonight has been delayed so that they can attend this meeting. So please accept if there's a mass exodus, it's not because of me. The BCC at this time is not opposing development. We like to think we're a good corporate citizen, and we trust that before any development is approved, City Council and staff will do their homework and ensure it is of benefit to the city of Barrie and fits within the overall plan. We're confident this can be worked out. But to be clear, the Barrie Curling Club will, underlined in bold, be adversely affected by this development or any development that goes along. We will, first and foremost, lose our entrance off of Essa Road. That's a given. We will lose, in accordance with the plan submitted now, a significant number of parking spaces required to conduct the club. And we will certainly lose any conveniently placed parking spaces oriented towards the front of the building. We are going to be surrounded by a massive development, and we're going to be impacted by the density of the population of that. It's a given. We will also impact the development. One might suggest that if one is going to do a traffic study of a curling club, July might not be the best month to choose. We're going to incur snow removal expenses. We will no longer have vacant land around us in which to push the snow. It's going to have to be trucked out. We're going to incur landscaping expenses as a consequence of the requirement for green space. That's a given. And right now, we don't know where this money is coming from. Now, this is not of our making, and it's not new. As it's been mentioned before, this has been going on for a while. We dealt with this in 2007, and we've been dealing with it off and on for the last 4 years. We, the Barrie Curling Club, the city of Barrie, and the applicant developer are well aware of what we need. This does not seem to be reflected in the plans that we have seen today. There is, of course, a legal issue in that this development cannot proceed without an amendment to the Barrie Curling Club lease, in that Street A, coming off of Essa, runs right through the most significant block of parking that we have. To be short, this development cannot proceed without that amendment. Now, one would think that one would sort out the legal issues before proposing a plan, but maybe that's just me. After 4 years of periodic discussion with both Osmington and the applicant developer, we have been unable to come to an agreement. Very little was said about the Barrie Curling Club in the proposal by the planners. That seems to be the case and seems to have been the case for the last 4 years. We're getting a little tired of it, frankly. But it would be a mistake to think that this is purely a legal issue. This is in fact a community issue. Consider 700 curlers. Now that's where we need to be. We're not quite there yet because we're still suffering from COVID, but we will get there. And we have been there in the past. Our demographic ranges from 7 to 19. Maybe more, but nobody's admitting it. And we provide recreation and exercise throughout this demographic, particularly seniors. And this is a group that, you could argue is underrepresented in this regard in the city. We provide a winter activity when many tend to isolate, particularly seniors. And they are 40% of our club membership. Consider mental health. Think of it that way. The city of Barrie doesn't offer curling an opportunity for anyone in the city, nor does the city of Barrie have a facility which would allow them to provide that. And this is a city with, as we've heard before tonight, impressive growth potential. So we're the only curling opportunity in Barrie. I'm going to keep emphasizing that because that's the point. We believe all parties to this application, the city, the developer, and the Barrie Curling Club need to recognize their civic and community responsibilities with respect to community curling. This is important. This is Canada. And we need to work together at the earliest stages of this application. Now, the Barrie Curling Club is not a rich club. What we are is an old club. Much of the physical plant dates to 1952. And while over the last 4 years, I will say, we have been working to upgrade the facilities to ensure it remains fit for purpose, we've got a long way to go. We anticipate the expenditure of some $70,000 capital per year to continue to upgrade the facilities. And at this point, I would like to make recognition and thank the city for their grant, which enables us to replace the roof this year. We're getting a little tired of the drips on the ice. Our recent budgeting exercise projects a deficit this year of some $20,000. Obviously, this can't continue if we're to remain a viable entity. And the way that stops is by getting the numbers back up to the $700 person range. And we're getting there. We believe this could be done over the next couple of years, but it can't be done unless we have the facilities and resources to support that growth. And that includes parking and access for emergency and maintenance services. We are, we believe, a contributing community corporation. We conduct bonspiels, some at the provincial level, which bring money into the city of Barrie. This is of value, and the city of Barrie has recognized this by their application to host the Canadian Brier. Unsuccessful, unfortunately. Future applications will require a vibrant and active curling community, not only for credibility in the application, but for the conduct of the bonspiel itself, because that's how it happens, volunteers. We're the only place that, frankly, that can come from. The BCC believes that this is a critical juncture in its life, and the BCC also believes that it's critical for the city of Barrie. A city of this size, without a curling club and a curling community in Canada, would be a rarity indeed. A travesty, perhaps. The BCC believes, or would like to think, that the applicant developer also recognizes its community and civic responsibilities. What is now required is for the parties to recognize the importance of this issue and the fact that we have only one opportunity to get this right. And that's now, before any other discussions take place. This can only happen if the parties gather to approach and finalize this issue as equally interested participants as a necessary prerequisite to the consideration of this application at all. In summation, Berry Curling Club, and I'm going to read this so I get it right. The Berry Curling Club requests that staff and council not make decisions on the planning matters of these applications until such time as a site design has been completed for the Berry Curling Club. A site design agreed to by all parties, BCC, the developer, and the city of Berry. And that design provides for a functional, safe, and satisfactory design for the long-term viability of the Berry Curling Club, as it is one of a kind in Berry. This, we believe, is eminently logical. It seems to us that this is the only way to proceed. We thank you for allowing us this opportunity, and we thank you in advance for the consideration of this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speak. At this time, I'm going to call on Craig Bush, who has a few words to share with us. And I dare you to get a better ovation than that, Mr. Bush.
This the clicker I'm using here? Yeah, okay. Hi, I caught the ESSA Mapleview development by accident. And this is a big night because there's a lot of similarities between these two developments. And at Vision Berry, we've identified those as 2 of the 8 critical places for Berry's future. And they're the 2 that are open. So I didn't get a chance to speak on the other one. As I speak now, you could apply a lot of this to the ESSA Mapleview one. So I'm here on behalf of Vision Berry, Craig Bush. 16 Bingham Court. I'm here on behalf of Vision Berry. With regards to this development on ESSA at the fairgrounds, we like quite a few things about it. It's attractive modern design. Both there and ESSA Mapleview, we have to have density. That's part of kind of our transportation patterns. We've got to have density in order to be able to have centers of community. And I guess I'm going to be speaking a lot tonight to the centers of community, because if we just continue to build sprawl and housing without building community as part of it, we create a place of cars and driving again. And a lot of what I heard tonight already was concerns about community and concerns about traffic. So we need to be building inclusive areas that contain employment opportunities, retail, so people aren't having to get in their cars and travel. We're talking about big populations, right? We're talking 6,000 to 7,000 for each of these. We hear the troubles with retail. That's when people are driving. Okay, these are self-contained and they need to be places that people can live where they don't have to have a car. We really liked the viability per strong towns. I think some people have read that, and the kind of the financial model that's sustainable for municipalities going forward. We like the greening of the site, particularly the elevated greening was pretty cool. The individual towers and platforms, and I now know that that is indeed for parking rather than having the giant buildings kind of looming at street level. At Vision Berry, we see an opportunity for an urban village. An urban village is basically a place of community, connectivity, retail, shops, places where people go to engage, have a quality of life. They're a destination, and this has an ideal scenario for that. What we proposed, and there's a bit of an obstacle, and I'll cover this again later on. The requirements for the city
are that places on ESSA, and I think it applies to Mapleview as well, that they need to face up retail onto those major arteries. And when we do that, we rob ourselves of the opportunity of creating a center of a village, a center of town that is not on the major artery. That's why we have so many strip malls, so much commercial that doesn't have any place of community. It's filling a function. Okay. And we're not a city of function. We're a city of people who need places to engage and to live and to be. Here's a suggested layout for what I'd shown here, where you could have 5-story townhomes, basically like the European village. If anybody's traveled Europe, seen what they build, they could only build to 5 stories once upon a time. So that's what they built, and they put it around a town square, and that's where people live. That's where people engage. And then it tapers away from that. That's kind of some examples. That's Austria, I believe. And it's a place where people engage. There's patios, there's outdoor spaces, there's cafes, the basic shopping needs. So nobody needs to get in their car to go to a drugstore. Nobody needs to get in their car to go to the grocery store. Nobody needs to get in their car to go out for dinner. Nobody needs to get in their car to go to the gym. Basically, the required elements of urban village. There needs to be pedestrian areas, so it's safe from traffic. Traffic interrupts. Traffic doesn't create community. Needs green spaces on the ground. This development should have a certain area, as should the other one, of patio space, because people don't see other people in buildings. They see people on patios, and that's what really the BIA, downtown Barrie, fantastic, right? What's being created there with the patios, this needs to be everywhere. Uber Lyft zones, so people don't have to have a car. Patios and interest on levels 3, 4, and 5 of this market area that tie the top of the pedestals together and the greening there, so that we have an elevated space. Right now, it's a big drop off. High rises to 3 stories. Yeah, there's a disconnect. Services underground for pedestrian areas to allow for pop-ups, markets, that sort of thing. Benefits of an urban village, it creates jobs. Okay. If we don't have jobs in these developments, people will get in cars and drive to their jobs. Okay. We've seen what happens at Park Place already, right? People coming out of there, and that's not really time sensitive. You can imagine what's going to happen first thing in the morning. You're going to imagine what's going to happen at the end of the workday. Okay. We need people to be able to work in this area, whether it's office spaces, retails, restaurant, that sort of thing. Creates a community center. It's a healthier lifestyle. It takes cars off our roads. It's got the density, and it needs to be enabled with a full public transportation center, because it's a really key route for us. It improves the reputation of Barrie as a livable leadership community. Why can't we have urban villages in our major centers? Lowers carbon emissions, and it is attractive to people and talent. People don't want to live in a box. They want to live in a community. There's an additional community benefit option. We take our seniors, put them in a box somewhere away from us. And in Europe, they don't. The seniors live where everybody else is, right? That's happier for them. It's a better mix of community. So there's an opportunity to mix the seniors home into this. The city of Barrie, I asked the city of Barrie to really look at whatever it is, zoning, bylaw, whatever, that requires developments like this to face up onto the arteries. It robs us of the chance for urban villages by that requirement. That retail needs to move into the center and create a place of community. Okay, I'm going out there. Okay, but why can't we? Okay. Vancouver's done this. They started with one during Expo 86. Okay. They have a series of these trains running on all kinds of stations, 60, 70 stations, multiple tracks. Why can we not have 5 stations along the 400 connecting us? Because we wrap around the lake in an arc. It makes sense. I think we spend $120 million a year on public transit. This would be more efficient and would create great connectivity right across our town. People would no longer be North End people, South End people, East End people. You're the Affordability Committee. You know what you do, but I just wanted to highlight the bold stuff applies to what I'm saying here. So city center vitalization, it's not just about the downtown city center. We're big enough, we're spread out enough, our traffic is enough. We need to have multiple town centers regionally. The fairgrounds is half a mile. We're floating at the Nain Gateway District, see if it floats, see if it flies. It's half a mile from the Station District. Jim, I know how you like. Got that from you. It's half a mile from the Station District, which is less than a mile from the Market District in downtown. This will become a major corridor, and we've got to think about this being one end of downtown versus being something isolated. And there's a clear choice here between just more housing or building our community and our quality of life. Oh, seems undone.
Thank you very much. We have one more speaker, Mr. Stephen Dearlove. No. 15 Parkside Drive.
Yes. So. Okay. I was told I only had 5 minutes, so oh my God, I'm just gonna have to race through this as best as I can. Here we go. So let's just start here. So my name's Stephen Dearlove. I was trained as an architect. I worked for the architectural firms throughout the city and even, oh, where's this thing here? Oh, can I use my own? There we go. So yeah, so there's the agenda. Who am I? Unofficially, I'm a retired architect. I was in practice for 37 years. I've been a resident of Barrie for 13 years. I neglected to acknowledge the chair, Nixon, councillors, mayor, city staff, and members of the public. And I own and operate Barrie's highest ranked hotel guest house now. So I did a bit of a change of career. I just want to show you some of the work that I've done over the course of my 37 years. Some of it you will recognize. This one in particular was the first job I ever did right out of the gate in 1985. 900,000 square feet on a brownfield mixed-use complex site in Ottawa. 80,000 square feet of retail, 2 office buildings, a couple high rises, and a landscape courtyard. I did that for Brisbane Bookbain Architects. That's it built. Unfortunately, they did some weird things over here in terms of the master plan, but basically it was built as originally proposed. At the time, these were about 10-story buildings on this side. We had a lot of pushback from these people along here that were referred to as skyscrapers and everything. But anyway, it went ahead, and I think it's been a positive contribution to the local neighborhood. This was another one that I worked on at Brisbane Bookbain, 600,000 square feet of mixed use in Quebec City. It was a redevelopment of an existing church, which you can see there. And then what we did, we basically took down the church and then reconfigured the built form around the former footprint of the church. And then in the back, see here was like a cloister, and then a new chapel at the very end. And so, and then that was just a rendering that we did. And then you may recognize this, but that's, I was the design architect for the RVH redevelopment. That's one of my SketchUp drawings. And another one, and then as you know, that's what's there now. And then Bradford West Willenbury Recreation Center, another one of my projects when I was with Salter Peelan Architects. So you get a sense in terms of at least what I done over the course of my years and the amount of sort of input that I've had sort of in the general architectural community and planning in the background over the years. So why am I here? Well, first off, I'm very concerned about this proposal. I feel that there can be another solution to meet all the, and I assumed when I did what you're going to see, I assumed that the premise of the amount of units and the amount of cars and all that sort of stuff. So I'm not questioning that per se, but I am questioning how it's actually been put together. So I'm going to offer some of my insights and even maybe some assistance to the team. So my goals and concerns are basically to encourage council to demand better for not only the residents around the area, and this obviously the residents of the city of Barrie, but also the residents of the site, because I think there's been a lot of things that have been overlooked in terms of this current proposal. I want to address the retail issue, which this gentleman spoke about. Sustainability in general. I think sustainability is thrown around. It's a word thrown around these days that really has no meaning. And I'd like to put some meat on those bones. And I'd like to challenge council and the applicant to explore the options that I'm proposing. I just read an article in Ontario Home Builder, so I'd just like to pull up this quote. Heather Ralston, principal of Quadrangle Architects, says missing middle is a term that is thrown around a lot, and people lump it with mid-rise and smaller projects, and that's a bit of a misnomer. Missing middle also has to do with price point and offering an option between houses and high-rise condos. And as far as I'm concerned, what we currently have as a proposal is high-rise condos and houses, right? There's really nothing in between. So this is the proposal as it stands, and I just want to point a few things out. Now, I don't know exactly what, I mean, I know this is a stormwater management pond. I'm presuming, is that the park space or whatever? Because I'll tell you, I mean, I don't know, but this is a 10-lane highway, or will be a 10-lane highway along here, right? I can't imagine enjoying myself in that space. It's going to be pretty horrific, right? From a noise perspective. Likewise, we've got all these townhouses. Sorry, I'm not very good at reading this thing. You've got all those townhouses along there. I didn't see anything about sound mitigation for those townhouses along that one street, considering they're backing right onto the 400. So what we have is this basically this U shape here, this V shape here, right, of high rises sitting on a podium. And then right adjacent to it, right, we've got just basically 3-story townhouse development. What I find curious is, why is it that these townhouses along here, right along that edge, are, they're nice and low rise. The whole idea is to be, being respectful to the neighbors, right, and behind, and yet, right, these guys here along that edge and along that edge, right, are also 3-story units, right? But they're up against a wall, right? Essentially, that's what's been proposed, a wall, right? With these, whatever it is, 12 to 29 to 32-story towers. And I don't know why the courtesy for these people is being addressed, but not for these people along here. So I just did a very quick section through the site just to sort of illustrate what this what I'm talking about here. So just graphically, we have about 100 meters of height with this 32 stories. We've got a platform of about 12 meters. The townhouses are about 9 meters. You see what the sort of the distances are between. So we have, we basically have this, right? And what I'm going to be proposing is more of this. So this was the image that was presented, and yes, it looks very fanciful. And I mean, I was an architect my whole life. I mean, I did these types of drawings and all that sort of stuff, and it was sort of all these images dancing in our heads. But what concerns me at that is it reminds me of this. And I think we all know what that is. Does anyone not know what that is? That's St. Jamestown in downtown Toronto. It's been there since the late 60s. Those big towers you see behind are 32 stories. And we all know what a wonderful place St. Jamestown is to live. That's one of the streets through it. Now, what's interesting, you'll see, is they added, these didn't used to be here, some townhouses along the edge. You know, I guess kind of nice. I don't know why they did that, but they did. But that's basically the environment. And going back to what the gentleman was saying earlier, I'm not sure people really want to live like this. So based on the project stats, I'm not going to go over them. But what I am going to draw your attention to, this is probably my biggest concern here, is the, oops, wrong one, the 2952 square meters of retail. And I go back to what the previous gentleman says, like, it's inadequate. So I just did a little sort of experiment for myself. So I said, what are the average sizes of your typical stores that people use on a daily basis, right? Or if nothing else, on a weekly basis. So we've got a pharmacy, a Shoppers Drug Mart, possible, you know, a larger sort of grocery store. These are the areas in square meters, right? So it's 2,900 that's currently been proposed. Well, I said, okay, I made two assumptions. One is we've got a pharmacy, a grocery store, a couple of restaurants, a bank branch, and an LCBO. Well, if we just put those things in there, right, we'd be 6,800 square meters short. And if you figure you've got 6,000 people, right, in that concentrated area, they're going to be using all those things on a daily or weekly basis. And so the last thing we want them to do is to be jumping in their cars, right, and running down to Mapleview or wherever in order to do these things. Even if we assume just one Shoppers Drug Mart, which is, you know, kind of serves as a kind of an in-between between a grocery store and a corner store, you know, because they have food and all that sort of stuff, we're still short, right, in terms of what's really needed. And again, I defer back to the previous gentleman in terms of he elaborated on that far better than I did or can. So I just did a little bit of math, right? And I based on 2,828 units. You said you could do one trip per weekend, right, down to Mapleview, that area. And it takes 7 minutes, 9.2 kilometers is a return trip. The amount of people going back and forth there adds up to 26,000 kilometers being driven every weekend, just to do one shop per weekend down to Mapleview. Because other than the Zayres, right, which is other than the Zayres, which is here, there really is no, you know, the gentleman said, you know, there's, you know, within walking distance, there's shopping. Well, I'm sorry, a Quality Inn, a Wendy's, and a used car dealer is not the kind of things that any of us are going to need on a day-to-day basis. So I really think it's woefully lacking in retail. And again, I go back to the previous gentleman in terms of the comments that he made. So I did the math on the actual how much fuel is used. So it's 800 barrels of oil. This is annually, right? You figure at 2.3 kilograms CO2 per liter consumed, we end up with 46 elephants being produced, right, every year, just from this driving that I'm using here. That's just one trip per person for 2,828 units per week, right? Or over a 20-year lifespan, 1,260 elephants of CO2 to get the sense of scale of what the planning decisions that are made today are going to have 20 years down the road. So very quickly, I just want to run through some precedents. So we've got Central Paris. I mean, we all know Paris. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to be there. If not, incredible place on earth. But, you know, we got London, Istanbul, Stockholm, you know, I mean, there's just the planet is full of incredible examples of incredible urban life. Here's a typical street. It's very wide, right? But this is all sort of 6-7 story construction. We go a little narrower. We go a little narrower. That's 16 meters. That's, oh, and just go back. And you can see it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-story construction. It's not awful. And then that's even narrower. That one's 8 meters. 6 meter, 6-story construction. And then I chose something closer to home, the St. Lawrence neighborhood in Toronto. There's all the stats. We won't go through them because it's not important. But you can see this is about a 6-story building right here. Right now, it happens to have townhouses right adjacent to it, but it's all 0 lot line. Everything's built right onto the property line. This is one of the townhouse streets. Another townhouse street. That's the other one that I just showed. There's another one which has a nice, lovely sort of little walk through at the end. And this is 15.5 meters. So similar to the 16 meters of the Paris example, right? But lower scale. But you get a sense of a street, right? We don't have front yards or any of that stuff. Why do we really need that anyway? We can take all that front yard stuff and put it into a common amenity space. So we go back to this. It looks like that to me. So I came up with an alternate solution with 2 options. So what I have proposed here is, and I used the notion that I didn't want to redesign the whole site. I was going to use the pattern that was already kind of set up with the access off of ESSA and the sort of the peripheral road and the block along the 400 and ESSA and all that sort of stuff, but with a fundamentally different urban form, creating a central park in the center, surrounded by 2 layers of 6-story buildings. And then with this block here of parking deck, right? And then lined with more sort of townhouse-like or townhouse walk-up, and then a dedicated retail space there. But again, supporting the previous gentleman with retail space in the actual body of the development. Oh, let me just go back for a second. No, sorry. The other thing that I've done is shown sort of pedestrian connections through this to basically get to these nodes here, which would be basically for higher rise developments along this edge, where you can see that dotted line. So for pedestrians, essentially, to get to their parking, right, instead of it being right there in their front yard, they actually would have to walk a minute or 2, right, to get to these nodes that then would access that block of parking along the 400 and ESSA Road intersection. On top of that block would be well, it depends. It depends on how many units you want to put in there, but basically 8 stories, right, of a solid block. I'll explain why I chose that. Option B is a shorter in between blocks with some point towers. When I say point, I don't mean like 32. I mean, maybe they themselves are 8 or 10 stories. So this is a section through the proposal as it stands right now. So right now we have, we've got the point tower, we've got this layer of parking. Apparently there's a 1 story of underground. We've got some walk-up townhouse here, and then we've got the townhouse development there, the tower here. One thing I didn't see spoken about at all was sound. Like, I don't know if anybody stood on that site, but I mean, the sound from that 400 is unbelievable. So with this, because of the elevation of the 400, right? All that sound is just basically going to come right into that site. And it's going to bounce off of these towers and go right into basically to the ground level of all of those townhouses. So it's just going to be awful. So I did a section through my proposal. And here we've got 5 stories, right, of parking, an 8-story block, 5 stories of a townhouse, and then these 6-story, call them solid blocks with a internal public courtyard. So we've got 20-meter streets. And anyway, and then in terms of the details, I won't get into the details. If we need more density, we can always go up here, but to keep all this stuff at six floors. Here's what sound does. It bounces off of that continuous block there, right, and up and over. So the sound, as far as from the 400s is concerned, is going to be far greater or more greatly mitigated than in the previous proposal or the current proposal. And then I did a section through the option B. And here we've got, again, we've got, let's say, some point towers, say 12 stories, thereabouts, maybe 4 or 6 here, same arrangement here. Again, when we deal with the sound, it's a little better, but again, the point towers are going to essentially, the sound's going to hit them, and then it's going to bounce, and it's going to go bounce up, and it's going to, but also going to bounce down. So there's more impact, right, for these people, especially in the upper units. So I don't particularly care for option B. So my conclusion is that I would really like council to demand better for this site. I think, again, to reiterate the comments of the previous gentleman, I think we need to be city building, not suburb building anymore. You know, that's done. We've done that. We've been doing that for the past 50, 60 years. And look at the mess it's created, right? We're in the mess that we are today. And I mean, not just the city of Barrie, but I'm talking about the globe, right? With all of this, nothing but car-based development. We have to come up with better solutions. And you know what? The models are already there, right? You know, our ancestors have been doing it for centuries. I'm sure that we are smart enough to be able to figure out a way to stop continuing to do, the definition of insanity, right? You know, is keep on doing the same thing over and over again. Well, that seems to what we're doing. And just like these gentlemen said, I was just lucky that I saw this other development. I thought to myself, geez, it's the same damn thing, right? Like to me, the two developments are like the twins. It could have been done by the same people, right? And I just but it just for me it just falls flat. It has no vibrance, right? I don't think cars parked in front of in driveways is interesting for most people. So everything that I showed you there basically supported all of the project stats in terms of how many units, how many cars, all that sort of stuff. So it can be done, but it can be done differently. And what was I was going to make another point, right? Yeah, I don't need to belabor anything. And so I think we need more of this and less of this. So on that, I conclude. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Oh, and by the way, if you like RVH or you hate it, come talk to me.
Thank you, Mr. Dulot.
Thank you.
I have been advised that we have 3 more members of our audience who would like to address the committee. At this point, could I call Giselle Burt to the podium if you're still here, Giselle? Well, then we're gonna jump right to Cynthia Clements. Cynthia, there you go. Come on down and state your address for the records, please.
My address is 67 Campbell Avenue. So I've born and raised. 67 Campbell Avenue has been my home for 50 plus years. And I have grave concerns over this development. I'm concerned Barrie wants to grow, but we're not thinking about what has to be done to get to where you guys want to be. I love Barrie. I moved away for a little bit to Toronto and I came back because I liked my hometown. I liked the small town feeling. Your neighbors were your neighbors. You got together, you could talk to everybody. You didn't have to worry. It was just more of a community. And I find that the direction you guys are going is you want to be Toronto. And for me, it's a nightmare. Like, I'm like, okay, so I should hurry up and sell. And I need to move north because Barrie's not what it was. My family's been in the city since the 1800s. So the direction you guys are going, for me, it's hurting the city. My concerns with all of your plans are, we already are struggling with our infrastructure, especially in our area, because we have no storm drains on our street. We have a pool at the end of our street. When it rains, when the storms, ice builds up in the winter, and you guys have to bring a front end loader to clean the street off because we get 12-inch holes in the ice and the snow because there's nowhere for any water to go. Our streets are narrow. How are you going to? Ann Street cannot be made into a wider street to hold, or Bradford Street or Essa Road for this traffic. I don't understand how you guys are going to accommodate 10,000 more people being in this city in this tiny area. And we can include the other site that you're talking about as well, the Mapleview in Essa. I just don't understand what we're thinking. We already are struggling with our healthcare. We have no family doctors. The clinics that are in town, if you're not have a family doctor, most of them you can't go to. RBH wait times are like absurd. And who wants to go to Emerge for something that you could go to a walk-in clinic for? I'm just struggling. The Wood Street well had to be stopped being used because of the contamination. With all of what's already gone on the DeVilbiss site, have we disturbed that? Have we disturbed all the TCE? Has this ever been cleaned up? My understanding is the plume is just getting larger and larger and larger, and eventually it's going to go into Lake Simcoe. Is this not a concern? Or for me on my street, I have a flush box that it runs from April till end of November, we'll say, flushing the water because the water's so bad on my street. I've been told over and over, probably for over 10 years, that you guys are going to be doing something with the sewers and the infrastructure on our street, but it keeps getting put off. And it's still, and now I'm seeing that it's 23 to 25 is roughly when you're thinking about redoing this infrastructure and maybe giving us some storm drains so our street isn't flooded. I want to understand how a 32-story building, how is our fire service going to handle this? What are we going to have to do to make sure that if we're having these huge high rises, our police, our fire, schools, our schools in this neighborhood already have portables. Now you're going to bring in 10,000 more people. Where's the schools going to be? We already pay our residents in Barrie. We pay a lot of taxes compared to other cities. And I'm concerned how much more you guys are going to say that we have to pay when we're not, as far as I'm concerned, not getting the services that we already need. So I just have serious concerns. Traffic, it's already gridlock. Essa Road is a nightmare. And I want to know how you guys are going to deal with this. I think it's absurd. I think the racetrack, for the history of the area, you really should have thought about creating a green space there, making it a park, putting in maybe some type of community center where families could come in instead of wanting to have 6,000 or 7,000 people put in this one plot of land. I'm very concerned about the traffic in our subdivisions that are already there. And I'm very concerned about the land that's the TCE and how it's probably already been disturbed. And I want to know what is the plan to ensure that it's not going to continue to plume and end up in our lake. I mean, you closed the Wood Street well because of this. So what are we going to do about it? And I know that these questions were asked in a meeting in August of 2020, but I've never heard what response was given to those questions. And I'm a little bit, and I may be naive, but you're calling these like a complete community. Is this another word for the 15-minute cities? Is this what we're trying to do here in Barrie? Is that what you guys are doing?
Point of order, 15-minute cities has been misconstrued to be a conspiracy that is not accurate. And there's many public comments that are fair game, but not conspiracy theories that also have an anti-Semitic undertone.
Well, it's greatly concerning to me if this is the potential that this might be the direction that we're going.
Mr. Chair, can you make a ruling on my point of order, please? Mr. Chair, when I didn't say the presenter was saying being anti-Semitic, I'm saying these conspiracy theories, if you research their origins, some of them do have anti-Semitic origins and they're just conspiracy theories in general. So it's very rare that I would step in and cut just because I disagree with the point, but 15-minute cities has been misconstrued. So I just wanted to obviously keep the conversation topical and objective.
But again, you said some, not all, some. Your statement just now was some are, not all. So there is the potential for 15-minute cities. And this all comes because they want to reduce the carbon footprint. That's what this 15-minute city is. It's to reduce the carbon imprint. So I don't understand. My concern is what potentially could happen in the future. It might not even be in my generation. I might be dead and long gone before that actually happens. But are we setting it up? I just have concerns. I have concerns that city of Barrie is turning into Toronto. And that's not what the city is about. The city is a hometown. We're losing our identity. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Giselle Burt, is Giselle back in the chamber? Yep. Please come down and state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, I live on 63 Campbell Avenue, which is actually adjacent to the proposal. And we have the pedestrian link that's right beside my property. And we've been living there for 40 years and we've had access to our property from this pedestrian link, I guess you call it, or laneway. So I was just wondering what you guys are planning to do with the pedestrian link, for one. Is it going to do the pedestrian link with fencing on the sides all the way to the road? Or is it going to stop at our fence? That's what I'm concerned about. And I would like to say something about the 50-minute cities too, just for, you know, Morales. 50-minute cities are a real thing. Have they done a traffic study on this proposal? I mean, there hasn't been any traffic study as far as I know. I mean, everybody's pretty well covered what I was gonna say. So I'm just saying that pedestrian link also will lead all the people walking from the, you know, the proposed site, all those big buildings over into the old place, right? Where we live. Might make crime, might be. I mean, who's gonna, what people, right? And I was worried about the TCE that was found in the plume. You know, they have the TCE where they shut the well down. I wonder what they're doing about that. Yeah, so I guess everybody else has covered what I wanted to say. But yeah, I just don't like the way City of Barrie is going right now. Yeah. All right, thanks.
Thank you. And our last speaker of the evening, Kathy Colbatch. Kathy, please come down and state your address for the record.
Hi, Kathy Colbatch, 97 Cumberland Street in Allendale. I think a lot has been already said, so I'm not going to repeat a lot of what Arnie has to say. And thanks for the shout out, Arnie. And I think my numbers were actually low. I think we're looking at more on the high end of close to 9,000 people. And I'm wondering, do we or will we know what is the occupancy of the site overall as it stands today? The numbers that I came up with was just basic math, 28 units times 2 people, 28 or 1,200, 1,400 times 4 people for the townhouses. So that's where the numbers were coming from. I'm wondering if we can also request a different design form in terms of the missing middle, which people have talked about in terms of triplexes, duplexes, not just townhouses, and smaller bungalow type homes for seniors and people with mobility issues that cannot handle stairs at all. So the original proposal that came out did have a seniors complex on the site. And as a result of no neighborhood meeting for the second introduction and application, we didn't have a chance to actually sort of talk about some of these things. So hopefully, we can look at them. Parking, where will overflow parking be when we're not putting enough parking in place? Yes, we all want to build a city that people ride bicycles and e-scooters and walk, but that's not the reality of the city of Barrie. Even with people in my neighborhood, and we're like 1 block from the GO train, they drive. And so, we really need to look at that, because we don't want all of that overflow parking going on to Campbell and Alfred and Marcus and the surrounding streets. And if that is the case, and you are going to extend Wood Street so that it's a through street, or are you looking at putting in permanent speed bumps on and in and around those streets, including 4-way stops on all of those streets as well? Because you will be impacting the quality of life of the existing people that live there. The road access, I think, is a nightmare. People have talked about Essa Road and parking for the Barrie Curling Club, which I'm glad to see so many came out from the curling club tonight. So thank you for that. So we really need to look at that. I did have a look at the traffic study, and I was wondering, you're talking about it in phases, 2-way trips per phase in the 2027 timeline, 2032 timeline, and 2037 timelines, because it looks like this is scheduled to happen, if it happens at all, over a 10-year phased in plan in 3 phases. So wondering about the trips, it talked about on the low end, 210 two-way trips per day from this site up to about 1,000 trips when all 3 phases are completed. So of those numbers, how much of that traffic would overflow onto the surrounding streets? I couldn't find that in the traffic analysis and traffic study. So I would be concerned about that for my neighbors for sure. Affordable housing. I don't think that there's anything that's being built here that's affordable for most people. So I know that in our official plan, I think the current official plan is looking at a 10% for affordable units, and or in the new official plan that was approved, I think it was bumped up to 15%. So if we're not going to actually be building affordable housing or attainable housing for people, the money that the city puts forward into the County of Simcoe coffers, would they consider building social housing or affordable units on this site? So it might mean removing one apartment building or some housing units, some of them townhomes. So I mentioned the townhomes for seniors. We need bungalow style housing, and I don't know what that looks like, where seniors and people with mobility issues, because without that, this proposal is not inclusive, nor accessible. We need green space and a playground for the kids in the neighborhood. Blair Park is not a very big park, and Sheer Park is a much larger park and is very well used. We have a lot of baseball tournaments happening. And the kids are out playing on the equipment all the time. So, you know, the fact that there's lounges and there's party rooms in the high rises doesn't do anything for the people that are in the townhomes that maybe don't have backyards or front yards. Where are the kids going to play? And I think, you know, when you're looking at potentially 9,000 people, there's going to be, I don't know, what, 1,000 kids? I don't know what those numbers look like, but we need to be looking after them as well. I just wanted to clarify, and I'm not sure, there's in that section of Allendale and in Allendale in general, we have been very successful in putting in second suites, accessory dwelling units, and I think now with some of the new, I don't know if it was Bill 109 or Bill 23, the more homes, more houses, now detached dwellings can have a third unit in them. In townhomes, my question is, are townhomes able to put in a second unit? Do we know that? Or is that through zoning bylaw, the townhomes and back-to-back homes cannot have a second unit? Because that will then, and if that's the case, increase the density of that site again. And I wondered, I did a little digging, or tried anyway, who is Green World Inc., Diagram Inc.? And when I went to the websites, there wasn't a lot of information on either one. So Diagram looks like it's a site servicing company more than a developer. And Green World Inc., I couldn't really find anything out about them, which, you know, it sends red flags out to me. So I seriously hope that the city does their due diligence, because this is a gateway project. A lot of money will be spent here, and we want to make sure that whoever we're doing business with and whoever we get in bed with, so to speak, has the finances to back what's going on here. And traffic sites. And I think that's all that I have for now. And obviously when the time comes to start a build, or when this plan gets approved, you know, what are you doing to mitigate the noise, the dirt, the dust, and the construction for the existing residents? And, you know, please keep the construction vehicles off the local streets. So that will also add traffic onto S Road as well. And as far as the height and density, I think it's overkill on this property. You know, when I look at the official plan, it talks about high density buildings being 12 to 20 stories, yet 3 of the 9 are above 20 stories. And I think we really should look at putting in more buildings that are of the 6 to 8 to 10 to 12 stories. And thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much. I am going to ask, are there any other members of the public who wish to provide comments? We have one, two. Okay, sir, please come down, state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Councillor Nixon, Council, public. My name's Steve Miller. Our property is at 1 Campbell Avenue. So I have a unique outlook on this whole neighborhood. I grew up there. We've owned it for almost 50 years. When my mom would look for us, she would look for the bikes that were parked in the front yards. Obviously, urban sprawl, we don't do that. We don't look, our kids don't even ride bikes anymore, right? But I see major problems with creating a community like this. There's really not going to be a sense of community in the high rises and the urban sprawl, the development that's proposed here. I don't see the green space that would encourage youth to really stay out of trouble. I know as a young child, my troublemaking was in Semco building yard. We would make houses out of bricks and blocks. And it was always something that would chase us out of there because they were afraid that it would collapse down on our heads. The green space that is to the north, if that's truly contaminated, that'll be a spot where a lot of children will probably gravitate to because it's open space. Dumping, 10,000 plus people onto Wood Street, which goes into a small, community that's, I don't know how old the community is. I think the houses were built in the 20s or something. So, I mean, the fact that it's not a through road over to Ann, it actually tees onto, I believe it's Alfred, that redirects to Campbell and 2 other streets to go over to Ann Street that is already undersized for the amount of traffic that goes on it. The development proposes only 3 access points. One is onto Woods through the northern community. The second is onto Essa. The third is onto Ann, which in correlation to Essa and Campbell Street is only about 40 meters to one intersection and less than 30 meters to another. I'm not sure that that volume of traffic can handle that weird kind of intersection that as it's proposed, it would be like funneling, this size of community into 5 Points downtown Barrie. It's just a messed up, convoluted element of streets coming together that just doesn't make sense in the proposal. I think there's a lot of concern as to the amount of green space that would entice, families to be out and about. Mr. Bush had certainly brought it up. And I believe that, the proposal as it's been presented doesn't really encourage a sense of community. It just brings, people that are already familiar with an urban environment up to Barrie, and Barrie is not yet that. And I'm not opposed to the development itself. But I, as a kid, would sneak under the fence to go to the raceway. I'm actually a member of the BCC as well. And, go in there and pull balloons down from the rafters of the raceway and stuff as a kid. And I just don't see a sense of community for the smaller, younger families in the development proposal. So I think traffic is going to be a big problem. In particular with 2 of the 3 intersections proposed. I think that has to be completely redesigned and looked at and obviously scaled down. I think that the proposal with 35-story apartment buildings just isn't going to be conducive to that area at all as far as being able to actually live and get around. And anyway, sorry, I didn't come as prepared to talk. I actually came as a guest of the BCC, but growing up in the community, I don't see that in the proposal that's there from a young child to what's now being introduced. And obviously we still have property that it will be probably one of the most impacted with this proposal with the second intersection onto Ann Street. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. And sir, I believe you wanted to address committee, please come down and state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
So Brian Wood, 250 Codrington. My question to council is, for the north end of Barrie, are we proposing a surface water treatment class 4? Can anybody answer that?
I'm just going to remind you that any questions that are asked that come forward, and if we don't answer them, I don't want you to get the idea that we're ignoring you, but
Something else here.
yeah, but the process is that any questions asked by the public during public meetings are all noted by staff and the applicants. So any responses to the questions will be addressed in the staff reports, which will be presented later. So we don't directly answer questions in this.
Anyways, I brought my notes with me because I wasn't prepared to speak. It was there, you know the area pretty good. The development down at the bottom of Johnson that we proposed like hell, but it's going through. It was an interesting situation in the summertime that they dug the foot, just according to building codes, they dug the footings. I think they put some piles in there too. But anyways, they went so far deep that it diverted the aquifer that should run directly east toward them, and the contractor ended up pumping out 1,000 gallons an hour, I believe, at his expense. My question is, for this fellow here, how far down is the tallest tower going beside at the proposed site? And if they go that, will they do would they do a study first, a groundwater study? Secondly, if they go too far and the same thing happens, we have a community well that's, I think it's on Innisfil, I could be wrong. Anyways, that would divert some of the water away from that well. And this goes back to the question, are we getting a surface water treatment? We think about the development and all the goodies and all that, but we're not looking at the crux of the problem. If we screw up, so that is my speech. Let me look, see if I got anything else here. No, I think that was it. Anyways, it'd be interesting if you wouldn't have a figure now how far down the footings are going on the highest project.
Yeah, again, staff will make note of your questions and they will reply in the staff report.
I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
Are you going to do a hydrological study too?
I
It
believe
should
that's
be
part of the
what
process.
MOE.
Again, all
That's
questions are noted by staff and are answered in the staff report.
Okay, I used to work for the city too, so I'm okay.
Oh. Okay, I'll try this one more time. Is there anyone else in the members of the public that would like to address the committee? Going once, twice, 3 times. Thank you very much. At this point, I will ask Ward 8 Councillor Harris. Do you have any questions or of clarification? You have 5 seconds.
Thank you, Chair Nixon, and thank you to everybody for coming out and for the really solid and thoughtful commentary. I never disappointed when the Ward 8 residents are asked their opinion on something. They do come forward, and even tonight, recognizing that it's not just Ward 8, it's a city entity that we all have a attachment to. Whether it's the curling club or the Barrie Fairgrounds, the Agricultural Society, the former Barrie Red Sox home, former Barrie Raceway home. I used to work there as a student. So, this is a really important piece of property for those in Barrie. And thank you, Mr. Lougheed, for your history lesson on the prior development, because again, this has a lot of history. And I'll declare my grandmother lived in the corner of Alfred and Campbell for many years. So I used to go under the fence to get to the Barrie Fair, Mr. Miller, not to get to the other things, but the Barrie Fair was fair game to go under the fence to get to free admission. So thank you, Chair After a few years, when I got too old to go under, Paul Parker would help me get over the fence. So, so I just wanted to thank everybody again for the great comments. And Mr. Dearlove, you have to meet Mr. Craig Bush. I think you guys should connect. So thank you. And so lots have been presented by the residents, and I thank you for that again. And, again, the questions that you have posed tonight will be included. So please note that. One thing I just wanted to ask of Mr. Hunter, and you've heard a lot tonight, Mr. Hunter, and I think one of the things that we missed in this reapplication or this new application was the neighborhood meeting. And I think one thing Osmington did really well is they rented the South Shore, and we were able to go and look at pictures and diagrams and talk to the people who were principally planning this. So Mr. Hunter, given you didn't have a chance to do a neighborhood meeting because this process had already passed that step, wonder if you can comment on how concepts like the urban hub and that urban village that have been presented were either discussed or considered in your plan as you came to this particular decision with regard to this proposal.
Through you, Chair Nixon, to Councillor Harris, I'll start off by saying we've been writing down the comments received tonight. There's clearly a lot for us to take back and discuss with our team, the applicant. So I just want to start by saying that we will put some serious thought into this as we work through the process. And as you stated, we didn't have an opportunity to complete a neighborhood meeting. Unfortunately, at these kinds of the general committee meetings or affordability committee, we don't have an hour to really get through the nitty-gritty details and have our consultants speak to it. So I will take the neighborhood meeting request back to our applicant. That's something that we can consider. Regarding the parks and open spaces, we appreciate the community hub comments. That's something that we will consider. With the type of development that we have, we looked at essentially and I would call it a new component of amenity spaces and common areas. Utilizing the sites and the parking podium that we have, we've got rooftop amenity spaces, which will include a number of amenities through detailed design. As noted, we have the common rooms throughout the blocks, as well as a lot of pedestrian connections integrated into the site and open space. But regarding a specific community hub, that's something that I'll have to take back and respond back to council and staff with.
Great, thank you. And through you, Chair Nixon, one of the other kind of concerns was the provision of affordable housing. And also, again, going back, there was the previous application had affordable housing and as purpose seniors built housing. And although I'm not as young as I think I am, in many of the people here might be in my age and maybe a little bit older, and thinking about children and grandchildren. And we do believe that density is important because we need to have more housing options and more housing affordability. With that noted, in our new official plan, increasing our commitment to affordable housing, I think a task force asking for housing options again has just been struck. So wondering what the commitment is or the details around affordable housing and even some purpose-built seniors housing in this proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Harris, through Chair Nixon. So based on the stage of the application that we're at for official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan, we haven't targeted a specific affordable number of units. This is something that clearly we have to discuss with staff and the applicant through the process. These are often considerations that are dealt with later on, where the buildings are, I would say, essentially right now conceptually designed. And when it's time for permits, we could look at implementing X amount of units into the development to accommodate for that. As well as I will take back the seniors housing to the applicant and discuss that. I also just wanted to note that through the development, we did take a lot of consideration and thought into the types of units that we're proposing. So the high-rise units will have 1 to 3 bedroom units, providing diversity for families and demands, as well as looking at the townhouse units. It's quite a range, back-to-backs, rear lane townhouse units, freehold and condo. So we'll provide quite a diversity of needs and price points for the general public and residents looking for that kind of unit. So hopefully that addressed your concerns at Council Harris.
Thank you. And one of the other commentaries, and I know some of the folks who spoke today were aware that there was a traffic study done. Just wonder if you wanted anything you wanted to highlight about the traffic study your perspective. And I guess the assumption would be that the current baseline of traffic, a new baseline would be considered based on the number of units, number of people, or would we be going by the same baseline traffic? And maybe talk about, also this may be a question for staff, but if you know the answer, you're welcome to. Essa Road is being changed. So is that part, I'm sure it's part, even if that's part of you, it's part of your deliberation, was the Essa Road corridor being adjusted from its current status of 4 lanes?
Yeah, through you, Chair Nixon and Councilor Harris, it's nice to be able to speak to these things. So a traffic report was done with quite an analysis by BA Group. Essentially, the existing and planned road network can accommodate the development. So what they look at is called an area of influence. So it's the surrounding neighborhoods, the local streets, and what's projected. So based on that, that's when we suggested the right in, right out at Ann Street for controlled movements. And then also looking at proximity to GO transit, those things that support the use of active transportation, public transit, and reduce car reliance. So working not only on the current projections, our consultant BA Group is working with the transportation engineering department with the city, looking at projections into the future as well. So that's where, as you noted, the improvements come in, such as the Essa Highway 400 interchange, which is under works by the MTO. Then ultimately, once that's near completion, it will trigger the widening of Essa Road initiated by the city, where they will ultimately connect and upgrade the Essa Road right away and road network to accommodate for the traffic projections that we have. At the ultimate kind of intersection to our development, that's why we implemented a new intersection. So that's where the primary traffic is going to be directed to Essa Road, which is the intensification corridor, and off to either Highway 400 or to other areas of the city on the network that can accommodate it. And I will say that we do have our traffic report posted online by the city of Barrie. So if there's a detailed review that the residents would like to have, it's available there or through the city. And we will have a comprehensive response for traffic comments with our next application.
Great, thank you. And I know it's there, but just for those who haven't, it's a big report and it's kind of actually blurring that traffic study, I got to say. But it does speak, if I'm correct, to the other developments, because this area actually, and Mr. Bush mentioned the station district, where I kind of coined the area down by the GO station. There's also some other developments that are proposed to the area. So that traffic study does take in the cumulative effect of this development plus those. Am I correct?
Through Chair Nixon to Councilor Harris, that is correct. So they do have to evaluate not only existing development, but those that are planned in the vicinity. So that's correct.
Great, thank you. And again, through you, Chair Nixon, maybe to staff. One of the issues that was raised, and I think is important, is the park space. And I recognize that Blair Park is close by, and I remember it had the most dangerous spinning carousel when I was a kid. It wouldn't be legal today because it was way too dangerous, but gee, it was fun. It's a small park. It wouldn't fit a baseball diamond. It has no tennis courts. So what is the requirement for parks, given the amount of people that will be moved into this neighborhood? And the suggestion was they would use Blair Park, a very modest park in size. Is there an explanation for how much park space one might require with this development?
Through you, Chair Nixon, to Councillor Harris. The detailed design is actually getting reviewed currently by our Parks Planning Department. Through the process of looking at the unit type and tenure, the private and public amenity space still has to be balanced as far as what we would require for public parkland dedication, and that is still under review by staff right now.
Okay, thank you. And maybe just again, because people have asked, and I did hear when we talked about affordable units, and Mr. Hunter mentioned family units, which I think is important, but then that would suggest schools, and I understand that St. John Vianney, the closest school, is actually a very small school and quite bound geographically with the land that it has or doesn't have. And Allendale would be the nearest. what is the plan? What is the process for determining schools? I know the school board gets is brought into every development as far as their assessment of school. Is that, if you could speak to that for people? And again, I apologize if I'm going off scope a little bit, but I know no neighborhood meeting, and I think we're trying to recapture some energy and connectivity on this development for people who haven't really felt fulsomely connected to this. Thank you.
Through you, Chair Nixon, to Councillor Harris. Through the I guess it's the third submission, but the new submission with the new owner and their new concept plan, it has gone through a full evaluation and circulation process. That includes the school boards. At present, we do have comments from both the Simcoe County District School Board and Simcoe Muskoka Catholic District School Board that are publicly available, and where both have requested discussion about a proposed school site. So those meetings are currently being scheduled, and staff will be participating in those discussions with the applicant.
Great, thank you. And Chair Nixon, maybe through you one more to Mr. Hunter. Certainly, Brad Gushu is probably not playing tonight because so many curlers were here. So I don't know if Mr. Gushu is playing. Anybody know if he's playing, what the score is? But okay, 5-3 for Canada. Okay, thank you. There we go. Live updates. I knew somebody would know. So with that noted, obviously the Barrie Curling Club and their rich history, we're here tonight, and they were here in good numbers. What is the status, understanding from your side as far as the parking requirements to support the curling club and its operations and its understanding of its lease and its position there central in that piece of land?
Through you, Chair Nixon, to Councillor Harris, I'll try to provide an overview without getting to the finer details, because I can say that we will be working with the curling club to meet their needs. So what we've done right now is we have maintained the curling club within their own distinct block. So there was a lot of evaluation that went into this on our end to decide and review the current use of lands to provide an appropriate land size for their needs. So through that process, at this point in time, we have included site improvements such as access. They can have landscaping improvements or other kind of parking improvements that meet their needs. It is to remain a feature of the site, and something that we did hear about tonight that we can appreciate is a seeking desire for more members. So through these kinds of development applications, specifically on this property, we will be introducing quite a number of residents to the property. So these residents can utilize the curling club as a feature. And I haven't seen a lot of developments that have a curling club located right on the property. So I think this is a pretty unique and special opportunity to maintain the curling club and also boost the numbers of members that the club may have. So the agreement, if I can speak to it, has an agreed upon land area 0.98 hectares, and the current draft plan that we have provided has 1.04 hectares. And then within that size of the land, we will work with them to meet the desired needs. And again, the main consideration here is that we do intend to work with the curling club and ensure that their needs are met through this process. So thank you.
And they're saying hurry hard. Thank you. And maybe I don't know if I had one final question, but I want to say thank you for the offer to have a neighborhood meeting. I think given the interests from residents both in Ward 8 and throughout the city and members of Curling Club, I think that would be a real advantage for everybody to understand what's being proposed and what's being the dialogue that's happened tonight with some of the opportunities that may be. And I think you mentioned, and I appreciate that, the Curling Club having this development, a development of some nature in its backyard as its neighbor, as its partner, could be a real win-win. I think that's how we would like to see it turn out. So thank you. Maybe one final question. This may be better for a neighborhood meeting, but knowing the history, knowing, and I think you might be a local, knowing the history of this site, has some of that gone into the planning, development, design? How does that play in the design of something like this, knowing all the history of the raceway, the agricultural society, the fair, all those things that make this a very special location.
Yeah, through you, Chair Nixon and Councilor Harris. I mean, that's I think for everyone who's either lived in Barrie for an X amount of years or grew up here as myself, we've seen the property go through quite a number of stages. And right now, as you drive to work, you're seeing a vacant property. I can say that, you know, through the detailed design process, there's opportunities to pay homage, if I can say, to the history of the land, as well as something else that came up on the last application that could be implemented is right now we're speaking of the streets as A, B, C, D. Other measures such as street naming, design, the name of the condo buildings, those are all important aspects that respect the heritage of the lands. And yeah, if I can say, we're very open to having suggestions and other design aspects that would pay homage to the history of the grounds and being the fairgrounds as we all know it from being residents of Barrie. So we're very open to those conversations and open to any suggestions.
Great, thank you. And maybe I'll stop there so people who want to leave can leave. But thank you. And I look forward to, you know, the opportunity for a neighborhood meeting and the dialogue around making this something that we can be proud of and recognizing it is a gateway to our city and something that many people have been excited about being developed and reimagined for quite some time. So thank you. Thank you, Chair Nixon, for the latitude.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. If anyone has any further written comments, you can submit them to Celeste Kitsemetry in the Development Services Department at celeste.kitsemetry@barrie.ca. Having no open delegations, presentations, standing items, committee updates, preferred items, reports of advisory committees, reports to committee, or items for discussion. This concludes the Affordability Committee meeting. We will adjourn and we will meet back in here in about 15 minutes for our 7 p.m.